Ladies and gentlemen, the Florida Supreme Court.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing, and we'll call upon Betty King, Esquire, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. King?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated at this time. The court at this time will call upon Sherry Lefkowitz Hyman, Esquire, to deliver the invocation.
Please join me in giving thanks for this wondrous day, celebrating a truly remarkable person, my dearest friend, Justice Barbara Pariente. We give thanks for her boundless generosity. She's always willing to give of her time to listen and give advice. She loves to give advice. She's always generous with the presents that she gives, and she always knows just the right present to give. She contributes generously to numerous charitable causes, particularly those involving children and the less advantaged. We give thanks for her kindness and compassion. No matter who someone is, where they come from, or what they do in life, to Barbara, they are all equally deserving of respect, kindness, and compassion, never condescending, and always sensitive to the feelings of others. We give thanks for her devotion to her family, faith, and friends. Although many of her family members and friends live far away, it is Barbara's commitment and devotion to them that keeps their relationships close and strong. And for those of us who live close by, or did live close by, she is the glue that keeps us together. We give thanks for her passion for truth and excellence, as well as for her keen analytical skills, for making whatever effort is necessary to fully understand the complicated issues and write opinions that exemplify truth, fairness, and sound judgment. It is probably these characteristics more than any others that make Barbara such a superlative jurist. And we give thanks for Barbara being so opinionated. But now these opinions really count. We give thanks for her refusal to accept mediocrity. Barbara always puts forth her best, and thus she brings out the best in us. Mary Dawson in Titanic said, "We are women. Our choices are never easy." Barb, I know this was not an easy choice for you to make. To take on this awesome responsibility, disrupting your very comfortable lifestyle, leaving your beautiful home, your mom, your friends, not to mention Fred, and moving to Tallahassee at a time in your life when you simply could have retired to the Cape. I know this was not an easy choice, but we give thanks that you had the strength and conviction to make this choice. We are all better off for it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me formally welcome each and every one of you to the investiture of Justice Barbara Pariente. We're very proud to have this momentous occasion in this particular courtroom on such a lovely day as today. Justice Pariente was very, very concerned the last several days. She's been checking the weather reports to make sure the planes will be flying from South Florida to get many of you up here for this great occasion. And looking out over the audience, I recognize many of you who have come from the South Florida area, and I welcome each and every one of you to this very, very festive day. At this time, the court is going to recognize the Honorable Lawton Chiles, Governor of the state of Florida. Governor.
May it please the court, I'm pleased to be here today to celebrate the investiture of Barbara Joan Pariente as Justice of the Florida Supreme Court. Barbara fills an opening left by Justice Stephen Grimes, who retired from the bench after serving more than 25 years with distinction and honor. In choosing Barbara for this appointment, and I want to say that was a difficult choice because we had some outstanding nominees, I considered her strong appreciation for the great role she would play in the future of our judicial bench and the strong vision that she has for our state's future. She understands the importance of upholding justice in the law, and she knows how to apply it fairly. Barbara's credentials, often on the bench, are impeccable. She received her undergraduate degree with high honors from Boston University. She graduated at the top of her law class at George Washington University in 1973. Following law school, she entered the practice of law in West Palm Beach and achieved great respect not only from the legal community, but also from the entire community. She has served as a volunteer judge in the Palm Beach County Youth Court, was a mentor to at-risk students in the Take Stock in Children program, which works to keep young children in school and out of trouble, and I understand her mentee is here today. Barbara has been fair, intelligent, and dedicated to serving justice. As a judge on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, she stood for merit retention and received the largest percentage of yes votes of any appellate court judge in the state. She's worked throughout her career to make a positive difference, serving on the Florida Bar Foundation Board of Directors as a director of Florida Legal Services. She was selected by the Supreme Court to participate in the 21st Century Justice Conference to discuss future visions for our judicial system in the new millennium. The mother of 3 children and the wife of a circuit judge, Barbara is truly a remarkable person, and I think we're very fortunate to have her as the Supreme Court Justice. Thank you.
Thank you. There are so many dignitaries who are present here this afternoon that it's difficult to recognize all of you. However, as is our tradition, we do like to recognize the former justices of the court who are present here today. And I'm going to look over there, and I think I see all of them. And we're going to start with Justice Richard Irvin, who's with us today. Justice Irvin. Justice Raymond Ehrlich. Justice Arthur England. Justice Alan Sundberg. Justice Joe Hatchett, who's now the Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. Justice Joe Boyd. And our latest justice who's had to step down, Justice Stephen Grimes. Now, I think I've got all of you. If I haven't, just let me know. Wait. I know that, but she comes later on in the program. And I have a special introduction for her, so we'll just let her sit where she is for now, and we'll get to her. At this time, I would like to ask Edward Blumberg, President of the Florida Bar, to come forward to make a presentation.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief Justice Kogan, Justices, and Governor Childs, honored guests, on behalf of the 57,000 lawyers of Florida, the Florida Bar, we congratulate you, Justice Pariente, on this momentous occasion. This is a real joy for me, too, by the way, because I've had the pleasure of serving with Justice Pariente as a designated director along with you on the Florida Bar Foundation. And I have observed her for some time, and I can tell you that there is no greater champion of the law in Florida than Barbara Pariente. It's a tradition for the Florida Bar to present a Bible to the incoming justice of the Florida Supreme Court. And the reason for that is that while our legal system, or at least the mechanics of our legal system, revolve around the English common law, as it was when our Constitution was ratified, actually the source of our legal system is really found in the Bible. And if you were to look in the book of Exodus, you would find that the framework for criminal punishment, a system of restitution for commercial matters, a system of compensation for personal injury, and even property damage is actually found in the Bible. In fact, the genesis of the Supreme Court is found in the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 17. And to give you the literal translation from the original Hebrew in the Bible, it says that when there is a matter of capital offense that cannot be resolved, or a conflict among your territorial courts in civil disputes, then ye shall go to the Supreme Court, whose members shall deliberate and render unto you a fair and a wise decision. And Justice Pariente, I want you to know that the Florida Bar is committed to the sanctity of this court. It's a great honor for me and really a high privilege to be able to present this Bible to you on behalf of the Florida Bar. And as you embark now on this journey in your life, we wish you a Godspeed.
The court now has the pleasure of calling upon, and you'll have to really follow me on this title, the President-elect designate of the Florida Bar, Edith Osmond, who today will represent the Florida Association for Women Lawyers.
Thank you. I appreciate your getting all those titles correct. May it please the court, Chief Justice Kogan, Governor Childs, honored guests, friends, and family of Justice Pariente. It's an extreme pleasure for me to be asked to speak on behalf of the Florida Association for Women Lawyers at the investiture of a good friend. In recent years, I've had the privilege in Dade County, like Ed just did, of standing up and speaking on behalf of the 57,000 plus members of the Florida Bar. It's been at least 10 years since I've had the privilege of speaking on behalf of the women lawyers. But I'm happy to say that today I'm speaking on behalf of 15,061 lawyers in the state of Florida, women lawyers in the state of Florida, excuse me. Justice Pariente and I became inextricably linked in the history of the Florida Bar. On December 10th, Justice Pariente was selected by Governor Childs to serve on the Supreme Court of Florida, becoming the second woman in the history of the Florida Supreme Court to serve and filling a void that existed, a female void, since 1994 when Justice Barquette left. 5 days later, on December 15th, I became the second woman in the history of the Florida Bar to be elected President-elect, designate for now, of the Florida Bar, also filling a void and being the second woman since 1994 to be elected. We had a lot in common: our ages, our children's ages, our South Florida homes, and even our friends. But the real bond came in the press. The January 1st Bar News featured us both on its cover. I'll never forget Barbara's reaction when she saw the cover page, noting that the Florida Bar president got a lot bigger picture than this new Supreme Court justice. She said laughingly, "You can tell who's more important to the Florida Bar." At that time, I told her, and I didn't realize how prophetic it was, that she didn't have to worry because Florida bar presidents come and go, but Supreme Court justices don't. They take their place in history. This morning before I left Miami, I opened the paper and saw that already Barbara had taken her place in history with pictures of justices, for those of you who are not from South Florida, dating back to 1846. 1846, 1902, 1979, and now Barbara. So she's already taken her place in history. But a few weeks after that Florida Bar article came out, the State Fall newsletter marked both of our accomplishments on its front page also. This time, we had equal-sized pictures, and Barbara was relieved that we got equal billing. But it was only fitting that we should receive equal recognition from the Florida Association for Women Lawyers, given the significance of the appointments, of both of our appointments, to the women lawyers and the women litigants in the state. I recently read an article about women corporate executives who were frustrated by an ever-present glass ceiling. The author attributed the problem in part to the fact that these women had few mentors and few role models to help guide their way. Barbara's appointment to the state's highest court provides just the role model that women lawyers in this state need, and serves as an inspiration to women lawyers in their search for full access to the profession. It's particularly important that Justice Pariente comes to this court as an accomplished jurist at the peak of a distinguished career. She distinguished herself as a trial lawyer. She has distinguished herself in her professional activities and her service to the bar, as you heard from Governor Childs. She's distinguished herself in her community service, and of course, she distinguished herself as a talented, intelligent, and insightful jurist. Her opinions to date stand as her legacy. Her record and writings speak for themselves. With that backdrop, we applaud Governor Childs for his wise decision in selecting Justice Pariente to serve on this court. We are sure that she will lend to this court the same talent, intellect, sense of fairness, and dedication that she demonstrated on the 4th District Court of Appeal. The women lawyers of the state are extremely proud of your accomplishments and wish you all the best as you move forward. And we have a gavel to help you commemorate today. We know that the state is well served with you on the court. Thank you.
The court next recognizes John G. White III, President of the Palm Beach County Bar Association.
May it please the court, Chief Justice, Governor Childs, Justice Pariente. It took me a little while to get used to saying Judge Pariente and now Justice, but I will get that right. It's my great pleasure to be here today on behalf of the Palm Beach County Bar Association at this wonderful event to witness one of our members being installed as the next Supreme Court Justice of the state of Florida. A lot of you probably don't know, but I've had the pleasure of knowing Justice Pariente for approximately 10 years now. I can tell you that as a lawyer, she was as formidable as an opponent as one could ever litigate against, and one of the finest trial lawyers around. As a lawyer, she was tenacious, she was hardworking, she was driven, she had great intellect and outstanding legal skills, as well as being the consummate professional, and was as honest as the day was long. Some of you may not realize, but there is a negative or a downside to those great qualities and abilities she had, and that is if you were on the other side of her. The problem was when you litigated a case against Justice Pariente, you couldn't outwork her, you couldn't outsmart her, and you couldn't outlawyer her. And the only chance you ever had of being very successful against her, and even then it was an uphill battle, was when your facts were better than her facts. In addition to these outstanding qualities, What was even more impressive when you had a case against Barbara and also her reputation in the community, among other lawyers, was she truly, truly enjoyed the practice of law. She truly enjoyed being a lawyer, and she truly enjoyed representing her clients and doing what she did. And it was very evident anytime you spoke to her, anytime you had a case with her. These great qualities obviously led, rightfully so, to her being elevated to the 4th District Court of Appeals, and now today to the Florida Supreme Court. To me, the most outstanding compliment that can be said about another person in our profession, which applies to Justice Pariente, is she's a lawyer's lawyer and she's a judge's judge. She's a tremendous asset to the citizens of the state of Florida, the judiciary, and our profession. Our loss in Palm Beach County is a tremendous gain for the citizens of the state of Florida. As a token of our appreciation and a symbol of respect and high regard that we hold for you, Justice Pariente. See, I had to get that in. That we have for you in Palm Beach County. We take great pleasure in presenting you with the robe and taking care of that for you that will be presented later. And congratulations and best of luck. We know you'll do well.
The court at this time has the pleasure of calling upon Ms. Eileen Solomon Silber and Ms. Doris Davis from Take Stock in Children, Communities, and Schools for another presentation.
Justices, Governor Childs, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am so excited to be here today, joining you in paying tribute to Barbara, who is not only a wonderful friend, but an individual that I respect and admire greatly. To most of you, Barbara is well-known as a gifted attorney and a wise and fair-minded judge. But I am here today to speak of the Barbara who cares deeply about her fellow humans, who puts into practice the importance of friends and family, and who shares her precious gift of time in an unbelievable schedule to make a difference in the life of a young person. Barbara is about to embark upon a lifelong career that she has earned because of her creativity, demeanor, thoughtfulness, hard work, and intellect. But being an effective justice on our Florida Supreme Court demands even more. Decisions made that impact the lives of children, youth, and families must be made with compassion, sensitivity, and empathy. It is Barbara's humanity in interpreting the laws that will make them relevant and applicable to all human beings. In our high-tech and computer-driven world, Barbara has modeled that only through meaningful relationships can we really create a safe, healthy, and productive community of citizens. And that is Barbara's unusual gift to the court. She has demonstrated not only through words, but in deeds, her commitment about the conditions of our society. For the last few years, Barbara has participated not only as a financial supporter, but more importantly, as a mentor in our Communities and Schools, Take Stock in Children scholarship and mentoring program. This program, which levels the playing field for all children, provides educational equity and offers our youth hope, support, and a vision for the future. Children are so complex, so unusual, and so extraordinary. It has been said that it takes a village to raise a child. But what does it take to raise a village? Well, first we need hands willing to serve and hearts willing to love. Barbara's leadership shows us that making a better world for all of us means that we begin to value other people's children as we value our own children. As a mentor, Barbara has been a confidant, supporter, cheerleader, listener, and advocate in the life of her mentee, Doris Davis. As Doris continues her journey as a young woman discovering her individual talents and gifts, I cannot think of a finer example of a role model than Barbara, who continues to demonstrate that being successful in a tough and competitive world does not mean sacrificing the gifts of compassion, empathy, and humanity. At this time, I would like to introduce Barbara's mentee, Doris Davis.
Good afternoon to all in their honorable positions. Excuse me. I prepared a speech to present to you all today, but I would like to just say a few things that's from the heart. Ms. Pariente, I want to thank you for everything. I want to thank you for being a great friend, for always being there for me, and congratulations, because you deserve everything that you're getting, everything that you've given to me and others, your dedication and hard work, it's coming back to you. And you know how I think it was a year ago we had to make the decision, me, Suncoast, and you, the Supreme Court, and everything is turning out fine. I'm doing great, and now I know you're gonna be the best, and I wish you the best of luck. And I love you. God bless.
Barbara, on behalf of communities and schools and Take Stock in Children, we have a plaque, and I'd like to read it to you. It says, "In sincere appreciation to Justice Barbara Pariente, mentor," and I'd like to read the inscription, which I know now that you're very familiar with. "100 years from now, it will not matter what my bank account was, the sort of house I lived in, or the kind of car I drove, but the world may be different because I was important in the life of a child."
There are a great many firsts today. One of the firsts is, to our knowledge, this is the first investiture of a judge anywhere that has gone out live in picture and sound over the World Wide Web. At this very moment, you're all being broadcast throughout the world. Secondly, the week after next, the week of March the 2nd, the legislature goes into session. The court will be on the bench, and they will be playing the TV tape of this investiture ceremony during the lulls in the legislative session and in the afternoon when the court is not in session. And we broadcast statewide, and hopefully in your area you can pick up the TV broadcast. All right, now for another first. I deliberately did not introduce one of the members of our court for a very, very good reason. She was the first woman to be appointed and sit as a justice of the Florida Supreme Court. She also, of course, by virtue of that, became the first woman Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court. And the first that follows is that she will be the first woman on the court to swear in the second woman on the court, both surprisingly coming from the same court, the 4th District Court of Appeals, to this particular bench. So at this time, let me first, of course, introduce to you former Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court, who will be administering the oath to our new justice today, the Honorable Rosemary Barquette, Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit.
Thank you. If the opinions I have written reflect anything uniformly, I hope they reflect how much I love the law and the people of Florida, and the entrustment of their care for me transcends friendship and personal loyalty. I cannot think of better hands in which to place them than in those of Barbara Pariente. So as a Floridian who loves the law and its people, I could not be happier today. The unbelievable coincidence is that Barbara is an almost lifelong friend. And as Barbara's friend, and one who has some knowledge of the deep satisfaction this job brings in administering this oath, I could not be doubly more joyful. Barbara?
All right, now we'll ask Justice Pariente to step up, and also her mother, Mildred Pariente, who is going to hold the Bible while she is sworn in. This gets very complicated in this modern age of TV and cameras.
That I will support, protect, and defend. That I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida. That I am duly qualified. That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state. Under the Constitution of the state. And that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of justice of the Supreme Court of Florida. The duties of justice of the Supreme Court of Florida. On which I now elect so help me God.
All right, now, you still don't quite look like a justice, so I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to call your children, Leslie, David, and Joshua, to come on up, and I think they have something that will make you more appropriately dressed for this august occasion. All right. Okay, kids, go ahead and let's... Marshal Barnes, at this time, escort Justice Pariente to her seat on the bench of the Supreme Court of Florida. Yeah, well, she does. Okay, ready? Let's go. Okay, now we have our 4th District Court of Appeal bookends. It therefore is appropriate that we call upon the Honorable Judge of the 4th District Court of Appeal, Martha Warner.
This is a happy day, but it's also a sad day for the judges of the 4th District, because today it marks, while we're happy for Barbara's ascension to the Florida Supreme Court, we realize that this really marks a finality to the departure from our court. Barbara came to our court just over 4 years ago, and at that time I only really knew her by her reputation, but I soon learned what a warm and caring person she is. In these last 4 years, we have had and developed a wonderful friendship. We've shared happy times, and we've shared our troubles. We've shared family matters and concerns with our work. I looked forward to the weeks when we would have oral argument together, because we always helped each other no matter what we were doing. And even when we disagreed, the exchange of ideas between us, I think, helped each one of us develop better opinions. It was always fun to disagree because we'd really work on our opinions together that way. The hardest part of having Barbara in Tallahassee is missing a very dear friend after 4 years of almost daily contact. As you can see by the turnout of judges from our court, and unfortunately Chief Judge Stone was supposed to be here, but his mother passed away this week and could not join us. We love and respect you, Barbara, and we are very happy for you. We wish you well in your new endeavors, and we know that your colleagues will value you as much as we do. We wanted to present you with this resolution, which is very formal in its language, but comes with a lot of love and respect. Let me read it. In the District Court of Appeal of the State of Florida, 4th District Resolution, whereas the Honorable Barbara Joan Pariente was appointed in 1993 by Governor Lawton Chiles as a judge of the District Court of Appeal of the State of Florida, 4th District, and has continually served with distinction on this court from September 1993 to December 11th, 1997. Whereas Judge Pariente has served the judiciary of this state and the Florida Bar by Supreme Court appointment to the Board of Directors of the Florida Bar Foundation and the 21st Century Justice Conference. Whereas Judge Pariente has served the 4th District Court of Appeal in many capacities during her term, through her work as liaison between the court and the bar of the 4th District, chairing the court's Appellate Mediation Project Committee, and serving diligently on many other committees of the court. Whereas Judge Pariente has enhanced this court by her community activities, especially touching children, including serving as a mentor to students in Take Stock in Children and participation in the Palm Beach County Youth Court. Whereas Judge Pariente has been the author of many scholarly opinions on this court. Whereas Judge Pariente was appointed by Governor Lawton Chiles in December of 1997 to become a justice of the Supreme Court. And whereas Judge Pariente has served the citizens of the 4th District and the state of Florida with distinction, honor, and wisdom. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the judges of the 4th District Court of Appeal that we, by these presents, do hereby express our profound gratitude and respect for the dedicated service of Judge Pariente on this court and our best wishes for a continued distinguished judicial career. Dated this 20th day of February, 1998, Barry Stone, Chief Judge. Congratulations.
And now another first, at least a first for me, since I've been on the court through many, not that many, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 other investitures after I got here. This is the first time that we have ever had a spouse of one of our new justices called to speak at the investiture. So this time, I'd like to introduce to all of you the Honorable Fred Hazuri, who is also a member of the Circuit Court in Palm Beach County, and I ask him at this time to please come forward for some remarks.
Governor Chiles, Chief Justice Kogan, members of the court, ladies and gentlemen, it is one of the privileges of being the spouse that you can sometimes work yourself onto the speaking tour. Barbara has asked me before I make some of my comments to introduce members of our family. So I'm going to introduce members of our family, and as I do, I'd like for them each to stand, and I'd like for everyone to withhold their applause until we have all of them introduced, and then I'd like all of you to stand when I do that. First of all, Mildred Pariente, Barbara's mother. Josh Kaler, our son. David Hazuri and Lynn Graubert. David's my son, and Lynn is her fiancée. Our daughter, Leslie DeToco. Our son-in-law, Paul DeToco. And our 3 adorable grandchildren, Timothy, Silas, and Luke. Also with us today is Suzanne Bakari, Barbara's sister. Her husband, Ralph, Suzanne Pariente and Ralph Bakari. Their 2 children, Rachel Bakari and Jeffrey Bakari. Barbara's aunt, Ruth Ross from California. Her son and Barbara's cousin, Jeff Ross, and his wife, Linda Ross. Our dear cousin, Marilyn Ahrens from Cleveland. My father, Victor Hazuri. My sister, Selma Hazuri. My sister, Sandra Smiley, and her husband, Harold Smiley. And last but not least, my favorite cousin, the former mayor of Jacksonville, Florida, Tommy Hazuri, and his wife, Carol. Thank you very much. Now, we've had a lot of serious comments about Barbara, and I'm not going to make this totally light, but I'd like to add a little humor to the proceedings, and I have a little surprise for Barbara. As you all know from the biographical sketch, and information that was given by Governor Childs, you know that Barbara went to undergraduate school at Boston University, and she then went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. for law school. And as I recall, none of those 2 schools have a reputation for being a part of big-time football. So when Barbara moved down here, she has really never bought into the Gator-Seminole rivalry and doesn't quite understand it. But being the diehard Gator fan that I am, having gone to undergraduate school there and to law school there, I'm very concerned about the fact that she's up here in Tallahassee surrounded by all these Seminoles. And so I'm not absolutely 100% sure of her loyalty. So in order to, in fact, things are starting to happen. The law school at FSU has asked Barbara to give the commencement speech, so I can start seeing now that they're starting to invade and try to make Barbara into a Seminole. I'm hoping that Justice Overton, who's a big Gator fan, will also help me on this in regard. But what I did was, I had some friends of mine who are very close to the University of Florida contact Steve Spurrier, and I was able to obtain from Steve Spurrier a hat. And I have it here somewhere. It's here somewhere. It's a Gator hat, and it's signed. It says, "Go Gators," and it's signed by our beloved coach, Steve Spurrier. And I'll be giving that to Barbara, and I make sure that she knows who to be rooting for in November. Now, it's a real privilege for me to be able to be up here making comments about my wife, Justice Pariente. I've had the unique opportunity of having shared my personal life and my professional life with Barbara. I practiced law with her, and we tried many lawsuits together. I'm happy to say that the lawsuits we tried together, we were always successful. Some of our own individual cases, we had our losses, but together we always won our cases, and we had a great time doing that. I first met her when she was with the law firm of Cohn, Wagner, Nugent, and she was just a neophyte trial lawyer. And I saw her blossom into one of the outstanding trial lawyers in our state. And this was no small accomplishment when you reflect back to the days when Barbara first started practicing law. Women lawyers were not in great abundance, and women trial lawyers were a rarity. In fact, in Palm Beach County, Rosemary Barquette, Lois Frankel, and Barbara were the only 3 women trial lawyers in our county. Barbara has been a role model, and many people have spoken about that. She's a role model because she competed in the macho world of the male-dominated trial work and excelled and paved the way for many women trial lawyers. She earned the respect of fellow trial lawyers, be they plaintiff or defense. She never asked to be treated differently. She only asked to be treated fairly. With the attitudes that existed back then, and to some extent still continue, that was not always the case. If you've never experienced discrimination because of your sex, your race, or your ethnic origin, it may be difficult for you to empathize with those who have. One can become bitter and angry, and many do, or when given the opportunity, you can see to it that others don't suffer those same injustices. Barbara has chosen the latter course. You can rest assured that Barbara cherishes the rights of all persons, and those rights are safe and secure in her hands. I can think of no one I would trust more. In trying cases with Barbara, I found her to be meticulous in her preparation, scholarly in her approach. When I found myself wanting to paint with a broad brush, she would always remind me about the importance of details. She never got lost in the details. She always was capable of identifying the problems and coming up with practical solutions to those problems. Her analytical skills were extremely helpful to me in my professional career, and of course have been invaluable to her as an appellate court judge. As you know, those of you who are trial lawyers and who are lawyers in general, practicing law involves not only representing clients' interests, but also the responsibility of law office management. Shouldering the multiple responsibilities contributes to a personal growth and maturity in a very meaningful way. For the first 10 years of her legal career, she was an associate and then the first female partner in the firm of Cohn Wagner Nugent, a prestigious personal injury law firm in West Palm Beach. For the last 10 years of her practice, she had her own firm, which was called Pariente-Historical, where she shouldered the responsibilities of attending to the needs of her clients and at the same time contending with the many stresses of maintaining a successful practice. The fact that she was able to maintain a successful trial practice and also be a wonderful mother to my own 2 children, who she helped raise, and her own son, Joshua, says a lot about Barbara's inner strength. Besides her professional successes, Barbara is genuinely caring and giving individual. Not only did she help me raise my 2 children during their difficult teenage years, but she has always been there for all of our children, and now for our grandchildren. Always exhibiting a concern and always willing to lend a helping hand. As she made me a better lawyer, she made me a better parent and now a better grandparent. Her capacity for giving extends not only to our immediate family, but also to our friends. I know that she made an enormous difference in my life and the lives of our children. Now, as I've said before, my wife is a very warm and compassionate person. Although she is warm-hearted, she is not soft-headed. Barbara can make the tough decisions. Once she has decided on the correct path, she is not easily distracted. If anyone has any doubt, ask any of her former colleagues on the 4th District Court of Appeal. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not express on behalf of all of Barbara's friends and family how much we miss her when she's here in Tallahassee. She has been a comfort to her many friends in West Palm Beach and such a meaningful part of all of our lives. But we are consoled by the fact that we all know what an important and meaningful contribution she will make to the citizens of our state. Governor Childs, I know that there were many superb candidates that were presented to you. I know that the choice was not easy. If part of your reputation as governor is the choices you have made in your appointments to the bench, I can assure you that your choice of Justice Pariente will only add to the luster of a well-earned legacy as the governor of our great state.
Fred, don't worry. For the first time since I've been here, the Gators are in a minority on this court.
It appears to me you're ignoring the evidence here on the bench.
Oh, well, what can I tell you? At this time, I also have the pleasure of introducing to you the Honorable Lois Frankel of our House of Representatives.
Governor Childs,
Honorable Justices of the Supreme Court, family and friends, may it please the Court, it is great honor that I stand before you, and I have to break from my script and just say, this is awesome. After the announcement of Barbara's appointment to the Supreme Court, several of her friends got together to celebrate at one of our local business clubs. And you should know that Barbara has a very close group of women friends, all who are here, and most who are very emotional, as you have probably seen today. So here's the scene. We're sitting in this very public club, and everybody is crying. We felt Barbara's overwhelming joy and her sense of accomplishment. But our tears were not just because our wonderful friend, who we love very much, had just climbed the Mount Everest of the legal profession. It's not just that the state had been blessed with the elevation of a brilliant jurist. I want you, everybody, look at the pictures on the wall. Look around there. Justice Thomas Douglas, Justice Parker Lee McDonald, Justice Vassar Carlton, Justice Wade Hopping, or a lot of ties. As we sat around that table, we were filled with historical emotion. Our tears of joy were for our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, and our someday granddaughters. I want to thank you, Governor. Finally, you've appointed a real fashion plate. Governor's not laughing. You know, it was like yesterday. It was 1967, Commonwealth Avenue. I met Barbara Pariente on the picket lines at Boston University. Now, I was on the picket lines, not her. And I was carrying one of my favorite signs. I had several. And it said, "Power to the people." And Barbara was walking to school. I asked her to join me. And Barbara, as I would come to learn, is a very careful, deliberate thinker. She looked at my sign in earnest and asked me to explain the pros and cons of what I was advocating. What were the implications of such a policy, and was it constitutional? And I said to her, "Sister, you're late for your class." You know, life in the 60s was mind-provoking. Racial strife in the Deep South, the Vietnam War, angry students being sprayed by mace, women's rights, environmentalism, our leaders Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, gunned down. These and like events sparked an explosive burst of energy in our generation. Before he was assassinated, our hero had inspired us. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The baby boomers were a generation ready to make a difference. Acceptance of the status quo was not automatic. We asked questions, lots of questions. In 1970, a tragedy at Kent State caused an immediate evacuation from Boston University, and our class was denied a graduation ceremony. But we were not to be denied our dreams. Our fires had been lit. Barbara moved to Washington, D.C., as did a young politician from Florida who had just finished walking from Florida's panhandle to its Keys. Neither knew that someday their paths would cross in a manner that would affect millions of Floridians. It was the value of their upbringings. Love for family, devotion to faith, compassion for the less fortunate, commitment to the advancement of children, and a passion for justice. It may have been a surprise to some, but if you know Barbara Pariente and Lawton Childs, you understand that this day was inevitable. Governor Childs, I was asked recently by a reporter who is my political hero, and I said without hesitation, it's Governor Lawton Childs, and not just for this appointment, but all for that you have done for our state. On behalf of, I have to echo what Fred said, on behalf of Barbara's family, friends, and the people of the state, I want to thank you for staying true to your values. Barbara has an exceptional mind, an exceptional work ethic, an exceptional heart, and your appointment of her to the Supreme Court will be part of your great legacy. And I will say this from a personal point of view. You know, the legislature will be in session in 10 days, and I'll sleep better knowing of the strength and wisdom of this Supreme Court. Barbara, it seems like yesterday. It was 1967. We were students at Boston University. There we were, telling ourselves, telling each other, telling anyone who would listen that someday we would be in charge and we would do things better. Well, more than 30 years has passed, and Barbara, you've traded in your bell bottoms for a black robe, and I finally get to say with tremendous pride, Madam Justice Barbara Pariente, power to the people.
The next speaker that I have the pleasure of introducing is someone who in recent time I've had to call commissioner every time I've addressed her in public, and that is my fellow commissioner on the Constitution Revision Commission, and that's Ellen Frieden, who's going to be our next speaker. So Commissioner Frieden, if you'll please take the podium.
May it please the court. What a day. This is an incredible group to follow, and there is a lot of love outpouring from everybody who has spoken today. It is a thrill and an absolute honor to be in this awesome courtroom as our dear friend Barbara officially begins what we all know is going to be an absolutely stellar Supreme Court career. As I look around this courtroom, I see so many faces of people who haven't gotten to speak today, who are so important to Barbara, and who have so much to say about her. So I promise that I'm going to do my best to speak for all of us who treasure our relationships with you, Barbara. But I have a special story to tell, because by a twist of fate, alluded to by Chief Justice Kogan when he introduced me, I was in Tallahassee the night before Barbara's appointment. And I say to the rest of you, if you had been here with us on the night of December 9th or the morning of December 10th, you would know that I deserve to give this speech. Now, most of you have heard about the events of those days, but I actually lived through it with her. Only those of us who have known Barbara when she was on a mission fully imagine what those hours must have been like. It was the day before the deadline for Governor Childs to make his choice. Barbara got a call in her West Palm Beach office. The governor needed some last-minute information. What more could he possibly need, she thought. But with her usual laser-like approach, she canceled her lunch plans and she collected data that had been requested. As she fed the last page into the fax machine sometime around 2:30, the phone rang. It was Jay Peterson, the governor's counsel. You know, the one who usually calls to tell you that you didn't make it. Barbara's heart, which was already racing at 160 beats per minute, accelerated off the charts. But Jay said, not to worry. This is not one of those bad calls, just that the governor is not quite yet prepared to make his selection, and he wants to see you tomorrow morning at 9:30 in the morning. Now, he did say to her, there will be no announcement about who he had chosen. Barbara, who usually plans her travel wardrobe weeks in advance, with great detail, like she plans everything else, and all of you who have watched her planning this know what I'm talking about. showed her mettle by managing to get home, pack, and get to the airport in 45 minutes. An incredible feat. Dinner that night consisted of endless second-guessing of the day's events and phone calls and second-guessing of the phone calls from the governor's office. Why did they ask for that additional information? Why would they call her up here if there was to be no announcement? Why did they call before even having time to digest that extra information they were asking for? What could all this mean? Do you think this is a trick? Barbara's insatiable curiosity at full tilt, never stopping, not even for a second, trying to figure out what was going on, her high-velocity mind working at its usual dizzying pace, only surpassed by the tumble of words coming out of her mouth. Well, the rest of the story you all know. At the governor's office the next morning, there was an announcement, and then there was a press conference. Barbara, totally unprepared, unlike her usual mode, got her first dose of the limelight. After appearing with poise and grace, I might say, before the press, she was introduced in the Senate chambers to the Constitution Revision Commission, who gave her the first standing ovation of her life. And then the press started writing, trying hard to affix some sort of label to our new justice. Or as the Wall Street Journal put it, only the second woman to ever be appointed to Florida's highest court. The editors tried to pigeonhole her into a category. Where does she sit on the political spectrum, they asked. How will she rule on death penalty cases? How will her life experiences as a trial lawyer, wife, mother, stepmother, grandmother impact her decisions? Knowing Barbara, I can assure you that it will not be easy to put her into any category other than extraordinary. It is her character, personality, and life experiences that will guide her superb intellect in following the traditions of this court in deciding the crucial issues of the coming years. I am sure that we all agree with Governor Childs when he said that Barbara's very presence here will enhance the confidence of all citizens in our state's highest court. Her life experiences will bring a new perspective, as do those of each new justice when they ascend to this august bench. I know that Barbara and all of us look forward to the day when the gender of the appointee merits no comment. No offense, justices, I'm talking about maybe when there are 6 or 7 women sitting up there. But for now, it's clear that women lawyers and others will have a terrific, terrific role model in our newest justice, who has truly managed to do it all in her personal and professional lives. You know, as you've heard earlier, in the last bar poll, Barbara had the highest ranking of any Court of Appeals judge. But in addition to being a great judge, Barbara is loyal, optimistic, upbeat, and she has a heart as big as Texas and Florida, too. In her law practice, Barbara treasured the ability to help individuals improve the quality of their lives. On the bench, Barbara clearly understands that her rulings have an immediate impact on the litigants as well as long-term consequences for the everyday lives of our citizens. Those of us who are blessed to share personal friendships with Barbara know how she is always there with a caring call or visit in times of need. And there is no one better than Barbara for celebrating happy occasions. And you've heard a lot today about how Barbara loves to give gifts. For special occasions or just for love, Barbara has a unique ability to thoughtfully select presents that are meaningful and perfectly appropriate for the situation. And everyone is accompanied by a note. And the note always manages to convey a warmth and deep caring for the recipient. It's always evident that a lot of time and sensitivity has gone into the selection and the presentation of the gifts that Barbara gives. Well, Barbara, those of us who have been the recipients of your many gifts for all these years are prepared now to share you with all the people of the great state of Florida. We know that through your Supreme Court decisions and in your new role as icon to the women of Florida, you are prepared to give all our people a gift: exceptional intellect, deep insight into and caring for the human condition, boundless energy, and a clear understanding of the purpose and process of law. all wrapped up articulately in the most carefully chosen words and phrases. We know that your wisdom will light the dark shadows that may surround the issues that come before you. We know that you have a special ability to combine rugged independence with open and heartfelt collegiality. We know that you come to this job without agenda other than to give careful attention to each and every case and to decide each controversy conscientiously and in accordance with principles of equal justice for all. What a phenomenal addition Barbara Pariente will be to this High Court with its great traditions. We know that with all our hearts. Barbara, Philip and I love you. We are so happy to be celebrating with you, and we wish you well.
Well, now is the big hour. Now is the time. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Honorable Justice of the Supreme Court of Florida, Barbara Joan Pariente.
I would like to say that I am speechless, but I do have some remarks to give. I really am moved by this ceremony, and as everyone knows, I can be an emotional person, but I want to express to you so much that I've got a script. I'll try to stick to it. I'm very moved. This is sort of by this gift from you, Fred. I don't understand. Why does it say property of Fred Hazuri? Can you imagine for him to get a signed hat from Steve Spurrier and use that ruse? I thought that's pretty good, because it doesn't say to Barbara, but you can share it with me. Over 12 years ago, I first entered this awe-inspiring courtroom for an unforgettable occasion. It was the investiture of my dear friend, Rosemary Barquette, as the first woman justice of the Florida Supreme Court. After the ceremony, a group of us posed for a photograph sitting on the bench. It wasn't a serious photograph. We had somebody's child with us, and we all went and sat in the seats and thought that was a pretty neat picture to take. Never, even in my most secret dreams, did I envision that I would one day sit on that very same bench and in the very same seat as a justice of the Florida Supreme Court. Today really is a joyous occasion for me and a remarkable occasion for so many reasons. As has been alluded to, my friends know that I enjoy ceremony and I really cherish celebrations. They're what makes the memories in our lives, and I like photographs, so I'm glad there's lots of photographs today. But more than the ceremony, today is a joyous occasion for me because I am surrounded by so many people who are so important to me. My family, who you have met, my extended family, and my many, many friends who are like family to me. And also, when else do you get to hear so many people say such wonderful things about you? It's very embarrassing. I guess the only other time is when you don't hear it, which is after you're gone. So, as Edith Osmond said, when I said, I think we have too many speakers, she says, hey, you only do this once, why don't you enjoy it? To all that participated in the ceremony, thank you for the beautiful words. And in my normal compulsive way, I try to limit everybody to, a certain amount of time. And I think you all did pretty good, so thanks for following directions. Even Betty did the Pledge of Allegiance in her allotted time. At Justice Barquette's robing, Justice Barquette described wanting to grab everybody present in one collective hug to convey just how very grateful, how exuberant, how scared, and how excited she felt all at the same time. I remember those words, and I can tell you, Rosemary, I understand that feeling, because that's how I feel today. I could not possibly thank each of you as you so deserve. There are so many people that helped me. But I do ask your indulgence to mention a few special people. In terms of one person that's here today that I'd like to recognize is from West Palm Beach, our Congressman Mark Foley, if you could stand. Mark has been a friend of mine. We're also gym partners, work at the same gym, and thank you very much for being here. Governor Childs, many other people have thanked you, but I want to again thank you for giving me this opportunity to serve the people of the state of Florida in such an important capacity, and for the faith that you have shown in appointing me. I told you when we met, I promised I won't let you down, and I'll do my best not to let you down. And that legacy that everyone speaks about, and that you spoke to me in our first interview several years ago, that you've considered your judicial appointments to be such an important part of your legacy. I really am so very proud to be part of that legacy. So thank you. Much was said throughout the appointment process about the importance of having a woman represented on the court. It really is a credit to how far we have come that there was such an incredible field of qualified women applicants. And of course, we met Judge Warner, and I know Judge Davis is here, and the token male and the array, Judge Kahn, thank you all for being here. And as much as there was mention about having to have a woman on the court, I look forward, as I know so many of you do, to a day that we can stop counting, and I hope that that day is close at hand. To Chief Justice Kogan and my colleagues on the court, I want to publicly thank you for your tremendously warm welcome. People have been asking me, how do I like it up here? And I go, I like it a lot. I said, everyone is so nice, and you have been so nice to me. I know I'm the newcomer, the junior member of the court. You didn't see it today, but I'm the last one in and the last one out. That makes Justice Anstead feel a little uncomfortable. He feels like he has to wait for me, but protocol says I'm the last one out. But you have all made me feel right at home. Not only have I enjoyed the collegiality of our first conferences, but I have especially enjoyed experiencing with you the haute cuisine of the Capitol cafeteria. And Justice Grimes, who is out in the audience, Justice Grimes, as Governor Childs stated at your retirement, yours will be big shoes to fill. Thank you very much for all the guidance and kindness that you have shown me. And above all, thank you for recommending Pat Madden to me, your judicial assistant and secretary of 33 years, and Pat's here today. Together with my law clerks, Meredith Nagel and Greg Philo, Pat has helped guide me through the first hectic weeks at the court and keeping me in one piece and making sure I go where I need to go, and thank you for that. I'm also so pleased that several of my former law clerks are here today. If they could just stand for a moment and be acknowledged. And as well as Linda Lips, who is also in the audience. Linda, if you could stand. Linda was my secretary and judicial assistant who worked with me for over 20 years. Unfortunately, she is unable to move to Tallahassee. She hadn't been there until today. I think if she knew what a great place this was, she might have changed her mind. And also here today is my former partner, who was mentioned, Louis Silber, who was my partner for over 20 years. Louis and I had a perfect partnership. We were both totally compulsive, both totally devoting 100% energy to every case that we handled, whether large or small. And I miss practicing law with you, but not that much. I also want to acknowledge my colleagues on the 4th District Court of Appeal, several of whom are here today. We have Judge Shayhood and Judge Stevenson and Judge Klein and Judge Warner and Judge Gross. It means a lot to me that you're here, and I know Judge Stone would have been here. I particularly want to thank my dear friend and colleague, Judge Warner, for presenting the resolution. Martha, it means so much to me that you are part of this ceremony, that you were part of the ceremony. Judge Warner and I had many discussions in the months before the appointment, not knowing what the ultimate decision would be, but we kept on wishing that the Supreme Court allowed job sharing so we could both get up there. We have been good friends. I hope our friendship continues, and you have been a mentor to me. To all of my colleagues on the 4th, those present and those not present, you all helped to make me a better judge by helping me understand that the appellate decision-making is not about any one person, but is a synthesis of our collective wisdom derived from life's experiences and from our varied perspectives. Since my appointment, I have come to fully appreciate that an achievement is never just the result of one's individual actions, but is the sum of the contributions of many, many people. And I am blessed to have many of those people in my life here today. First and foremost, my husband, Fred Hazuri. Fred, you are the love of my life. You are my true Prince Charming. You not only are my passion, but you have always been my mentor and sage advisor. Early on in my legal career, you taught me by example what the practice of law was really about: hard work and dedication to one's clients. And what an example you were. You taught me to practice law in a straightforward manner, never sacrificing principles for financial gain. Today, Fred mentioned what he had mentioned previously about me being warm-hearted and not soft-headed. Well, those who know Fred know that he can be hard-headed, but he is also soft-hearted. Fred, you have always supported me fully, and I know my decision to seek this position was not an easy one. I knew it would involve great sacrifice on your part, but you have shown the purest and most unselfish love by fully supporting me in this quest and in the new life that we will forge together. And thank you so much for that. You've met my children. You've met Josh and David, and is Leslie, she's gone to do her mother thing. Being your mother and stepmother has not always been the easiest of roles, but in the end, my relationship with each of you has brought me so much joy and has made me such a better person. I especially love this new role of grandmother. This is really the big treat, and you met our adorable grandchildren, Timothy, who is still here. You want to wave, Timothy? And I guess Silas and Luke, they're checking out the other parts of the courtroom or the courthouse. I have thought long and hard, because I've been asked, how I got here or what drives me. And I don't know that I have that complete answer. I didn't think that my story was a particularly compelling one. It certainly wasn't as good as Rosemary's, coming to this country through Mexico and being an immigrant. But I know that an integral part of who I am comes from the unqualified love and support of my mother, Mildred, and my father, Charles Pariente, who passed away almost 7 years ago. My parents never said that there were any limits on what I could achieve, but at the same time, they never created any expectations that I must achieve any particular goal. And in this loving environment, I flourished. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for your unconditional love and support. I know how much this day means to you, and I know how much this day would have meant to Dad as well. I would also like to acknowledge 3 other dear people who are no longer with us, but who all were very important in my life. My cousin, Sanford Aarons, his wife Marilyn is here today, My Uncle Joe Ross and Ruth Ross is here today, and my Uncle S. Chesterfield Oppenheim. When I was growing up in a New Jersey suburbs in the 50s and 60s, I was never told that girls couldn't be lawyers, but I didn't know any girl lawyers or any women lawyers. And really, the thought of becoming a lawyer never occurred to me. While I never dreamed of becoming a lawyer, and certainly not a judge, and certainly not a Florida Supreme Court justice, I did dream of making a difference. So I eventually went to law school because I wanted to make a difference. Shortly after I became a judge on the 4th District Court of Appeal, I realized that most of the public has little notion of what occurs in the appellate courts, nor fully appreciates its critical role in protecting the rights of all of our citizens. I still have to patiently explain to those who congratulate me that I am of no help when it comes to traffic tickets. Thus, I applaud the efforts of our court, led by Chief Justice Kogan, to demystify the judicial process through greater public awareness and public education, and to increase public access to the courts through technology. And I will work hard to continue those efforts. When my 7-year-old goddaughter Zoe, who's also here today, asked me soon after my appointment what it was I did, I tried to search for an explanation that would be meaningful to her. So I asked her, what would she think of a law that prevented short people from going outside their homes? And she responded by asking me, why would someone want to do something like that? Although I couldn't explain why, I did explain that if somehow a law like that managed to pass, in this country, a person could come to court to challenge that law. At that moment, Zoe's face lit up. She looked at me and said, if they came to you, I know what you would do. And I asked her if that was because I was short. And she said, no, that's because you're fair. And I thought it all boils down to what Zoe said. We as judges strive to treat everyone fairly. Recently, Chief Justice Kogan referred to the courts as liberty's sanctuary, and I found that to be such an inspirational expression of our role as judges. In the proudest tradition of our democracy, we act to ensure access to justice for all, we safeguard the Constitution, and we protect individual rights. As a justice, I pledge to dispense even-handed justice with an open mind and objective manner, but with a compassionate heart, ever mindful that these disputes are not only about legal principles, but about real people with real problems. Thank you, one and all, for sharing this marvelous occasion with me. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your support. And above all, thank you for your friendship. My heart and a giant hug goes out to you, one and all.
At this time, the court recognizes the Honorable Robert Gross, Judge of the 4th District Court of Appeal. Judge Gross.
Governor Childs, Chief Justice Kogan, friends and family who are here to honor Justice Pariente. It's clear that many of us are excited to be here this afternoon because Justice Pariente is the first of our generation to serve on the Supreme Court. I define our generation as being anyone who listened to President Kennedy's inaugural address, but was not yet in college at the time. For anyone who came of age in the 1960s, that was certainly a time of great hopes for the future. William Butler Yeats captured an aspect of youthful idealism not apparent to us then when he wrote, "In dreams began responsibility." Now, as a generation, the ball is in our court, and we are lucky to have someone like Justice Pariente to carry that ball. I know that Barbara shares the views of the law articulated by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes when he wrote almost 100 years ago, "Every calling is great when greatly pursued, but what other gives such scope to realize the spontaneous energy of one's soul? In what other does one plunge so deep into the stream of life, so share its passions, its battles, its despair, its triumphs, both as a witness and an actor? What a subject is this abstraction called the law, wherein, as a magic mirror, we see reflected not only our own lives, but the lives of all men and women that have been." Justice Pariente, we are all very proud of you. 100 years from now, a law student who never knew you will read one of your opinions and move to the measure of your thought. Congratulations and Godspeed.
Thank you, Judge Gross. I want to thank each and every one of you, and especially Governor Childs, for being with us today. Governor, thank you very much for participating in this ceremony, and even more importantly, giving us Barbara Pariente as a colleague on the court. I know, based upon what I have seen thus far, and of course, before she got here, we read most of her opinions anyway, as they came up from the lower court. We know she's going to be a splendid addition to this court, and again, we thank you for providing us with the opportunity to serve with her. At this time, I would like to invite all of you to step outside for a reception, a little refreshment, and that will give you the opportunity to join with and speak to and congratulate Justice Pariente. With that, ladies and gentlemen, court is in adjournment.
Please rise.
One time.
No, you got it.